The next 2 days felt like the longest of my life. After spending so much time together and connected, being back in our normal lives was a gut punch. Yanni had to work at the pub, and it was too far from my work to justify going there to eat, even with the excuse of the incredible food and a burgeoning relationship, if that was what it was. Since that first night, drunk on the power, we hadn't really talked about it or been overcome with passion like that. The feeling when we were loaded was so perfect. It was as if we didn't need to say anything or do anything, like an old relationship, not a new one. That said, she was pretty hot in my eyes, and soulmate or not, there was going to have to be that conversation soon. There was a damp smell in the air, but the ground, even here under the trees, was dry. It was one of those days that made you regret whatever choice of clothing you made. Waiting for Yanni, I was freezing, but I knew as soon as I started moving that I'd break into a prickly sweat. My heart raced as I heard her approaching. I rehearsed my opening line in my head. I had a few more lined up, but really, I felt like I just needed to get the first one out right, and the rest would follow. Ugh, said Yanni as she caught sight of me. Why do we have to come all the way out here into the woods to do anything? Yanni, I have been wanting. It's a good job you are super cute, huh? She finished over the top of me. Oh, thanks. I felt the blood rush to my cheeks, and my resolve was forced out like hydraulics. Again, she walked over and kissed me. I love when you get flustered like that. It's how I feel all the time around you, and you are sometimes too calm and in control, and I don't know what you are thinking. These are the moments where I feel like we are able to communicate. About that, I said. I have been thinking about this for so much easier to talk when we can both really listen and hear the other person. Do you mind if we load up? I've really missed you the last couple of days. I mean, I'm sure it's not been as bad for you, but I had really got used to that feeling. I nodded, mute and defeated in the face of her interruptions. I couldn't do it now. She might then see that she'd been cutting me off from something important and feel guilty, which is not the emotion I want her to feel looking back on this. I'd have to wait. Again, as it always did, the rush of the connection washed away any negativity. I flicked off the safe switch and brought the gun to my shoulder. What is that button? Asked Yanni. I call it the safe switch. It's been on my gun for as long as I can remember. I think it's to prevent people from hurting someone by accident. Or themselves, I guess. When it is on, the trigger doesn't pull. Oh, so like a scabbard for a sword. Flicking it off is like drawing your blade ready to use. Yeah, I guess. It's never been that important as you'd expect, but I figure now, unless I want to kill some poor animal or passerby, I need to be more disciplined. Okay, Yanni said with a curious expression. What? Well, it's just, how come you need it? Aren't I the safety control? I don't think the gun would go off by accident, would it? I flicked the safety on and handed it to her. Here you go, safety control. You have a look at the competition. Yanni held the gun up and pointed it at me with a smile. Don't do that, I said with hands up in mock surrender. Even with 2 safety controls, I'm not up for taking the risk. She looked a bit downcast and lowered the barrel. You did say it wouldn't do anything if I pulled the try. The bang of the rifle sounded impossibly loud. My leg was booted from under me, like a mule kick, and as I spun to the ground, my brain had time to think that it had never heard the gun go off from that end. I hit the ground hard, and through the ringing in my ears, I heard Yanni screaming. I didn't hurt, but I assumed that was the shock kicking in. I'd seen it 2 years back when a woman lost an arm in a duel and carried on fighting like it was only a scratch until the blood loss dropped her a few long seconds later. I'd seen what our weapon did to 100-year-old trees, let alone my twig of a shin. I couldn't look. Stop screaming, I managed to croak eventually. How bad is it? Oh God, Treep, you're alive. Just give it to me straight. Please, Yanni. It's fine. It looks fine. I opened my eyes and looked down, and sure enough, my leg looked completely intact, covered in mud from the wet earth that was hiding beneath the superficially dry ground, but otherwise unharmed. I sat up slowly, trying to get back in control of my breathing. I think I'm fine. Pass me the gun. Yanni gave me our rifle, and I checked the safety. Still engaged. I pointed it away from us into the trees and tried to pull the trigger. It didn't budge. What the hell? I said. I flicked the catch off and aimed at a dead tree stump a few meters away. With a sharp crack, the stump disintegrated into kindling. "Here," I said. "You try." I handed it back to Yanni, and as every time before, she was unable to get the weapon to fire. "I've got an idea," she said, and flicked the safety back on. I looked at her curiously as she took aim at a small ground rat on the edge of its burrow. The gun spoke, and the rat spun through the air away from its home. I watched open-mouthed as it picked itself back up, with a lot more grace than I had, and sprinted back to the safety of its underground lair. "Shit," I said. Yanni looked at me, eyes ablaze with power. I knew exactly how she felt. The connection was one thing. Firing it was something on a whole other level. "It really is ours, not just yours," she breathed. "We can intervene and help without sentencing people to death. Yes!" She stood and held the gun over her head like a trophy. I was feeling a lot less celebratory, and Yanni could see it, even as drunk on this moment as she was. "What?" "I'm an assassin. That's what my role is. You get to save the day with your safe shooting. All I can do is kill, and then only the people you want me to shoot. I feel like I'm a hired killer or something." Yanni's expression darkened. "Fuck. And I can't stress this enough. How do you think it has been for me? I couldn't even fire the thing. You haven't even lost anything. You can still do everything you used to. Are you seriously in a piss because now I'm included as well?" I had the wherewithal to look sheepish as my brain followed her logic through. "You're right. I'm sorry, Yanni. I guess I just hadn't really appreciated what it's like for you until this moment." She seemed to suddenly become aware that she was standing over me holding a gun that she had just shot me with. "Fuck, no, I'm sorry. Are you sure you're okay?" She tried to hand back our gun. I pushed it away and held out a hand for her to help me up. "No," I said. "You need it. It's time for you to start practicing." Enjoying the story? Don't forget to subscribe and comment. All right, let's continue the story. I would like to say practice was a smooth experience, but that would be a lie. This was not because I was a bad teacher, although I almost certainly was, given that my total experience of firing a weapon extended back as far as meeting Yanni and no further. It was also not, unfortunately for my ego, because Yanni was not very good. Quite the opposite. Almost immediately, she was much more skilled than I was with the gun in her hands. She was faster, able to strip down, light, reassemble, reload, and be ready to fire in speeds I could only imagine. That was particularly galling, as taking it apart and putting it back together was one of the things I had been able to practice. Worse, though, she was more accurate than me. Our games of horse were incredibly one-sided, as she was able to make almost any shot she imagined, and I was left blowing up piles of leaf mulch to the left or right. Bloody leaf mulch. It had soaked the knees of my trousers wet through. Yanni would probably say it was a beautiful cinnamon-colored fragrant carpet or something. She was unbearably chipper about everything since she had been unleashed. Everything is more fun when you are winning. "Best 6 out of 11? She asked me with a grin. "No," I said. "And before you offer to handicap yourself in some way, no to that as well. That would actually make it worse, I think, if that's possible. I think I've had enough for one day." "It's good that I can shoot well, though, isn't it?" I sighed. My clothes were wet. I'd been in a mood all day, but the worst thing was she was right and I was being pathetic and selfish. The realization of that made it even worse. I just wanted to wallow in my self-pity for a bit, but I couldn't. She didn't deserve that. "Yeah, of course, I'm sorry, Yanni. It's just slightly worrying for me. I thought I could shoot pretty well, but it turns out I'm not that great." "That's okay," said Yanni. "We didn't want to kill people if we can avoid it anyway, did we? Now I can do the shooting anyway." "No, I understand that. The situation the last time we went out with your grandfather, you doing the shooting would have been perfect. So what's the problem?" I took the gun from her and aimed at the tree she had hit to go 5-0 up and prompt the request for best of 11. I fired and missed. "That is." "What? You missed a tree?" "Look, you are there for when we don't think the person is dangerous or whatever, and in that situation you can hit them from so far away they will never even see it coming. But if I need to shoot, if the person is trying to kill us or someone we love or even just some random passerby, well then I need to get in close to them. When we really want to be far away, we can't be. That scares me." Yanni was silent while she thought about it. She nodded. "Oh, I thought you were just being a dick." "Well, I was, but also this," I replied. "What if I teach you?" she asked. I nodded. I think I need the help, but not today. Today, I think we should go and get a drink. You in? She nodded, then looked at me curiously. What's that? What's what? I asked and followed her gaze. On my chest, there was a small point of light, like a miniature torch was shining on me. It flicked and moved slightly. I brushed my hand and it didn't disappear. Oh, I dunno. Yanni stepped towards me and the point moved onto her back, then jumped back onto my head, over her shoulder. I jumped, despite it not actually touching me. I moved experimentally, and it followed me as I did so. Is it really following you? Yanni asked as she reached up to touch it. What is it? It is a marker, said a voice from the tree line. It is the spot that the bullet from my partner will land, if I decide to allow it. And unlike you, Treep, I can assure you he will not miss. Yanni wheeled around and stood by my side to face the voice. The red light played from one of our chests to the other, almost playfully, but making it very clear that it could cover both of us with ease. A tall man in a smart smock top and breeches entered the clearing slowly. Hello, Yanni. Hello, Treep. I see that you are beginning to understand the partnership you have now. Can I ask that you place the gun on the ground, Treep? I have seen enough of your shooting to know not to worry about myself, but I fear that if you made a wrong move, my partner would make it very much your last move, and that would be a real shame. I'm sure lots of people would be upset, but I'm only really concerned with one. My boss would be very upset if he sent me out here to invite you to come and talk to him, and I returned empty and bloody-handed. You're bluffing, said Yanni with surprising force. Being able to shoot had changed her attitude as well. The man shrugged and pointed at the empty duffel bag we transported our gun in over Yanni's shoulder. The light flicked to the bag, and with almost no noise at all, the join linking the strap to the bag exploded, and the bag dropped to the ground. I never bluff, said the man. He saluted the unseen sniper in the trees for the shot and turned back to us. Now, can I ask that you put that gun down and back away from it? I did as I was asked, and we both stepped away from the most precious thing in our lives. The man strolled over and scooped it up casually. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. He smiled sympathetically at our obvious discomfort. I know how you feel. Believe me, he said, turning away and beckoning us to follow. Now, come along. You are going to want to hear what my boss has to say. We followed. There was no other choice. Thank you for listening to the story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next chapter. Your support means a lot.